Hi guys. This will be my second video, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the drugs that I will be taking for chemotherapy that's starting tomorrow. So I'm taking two drugs. I'm taking doxorubicin, and I'm also taking iflosamide. So those two drugs are chemotherapy drugs. The first one, doxorubicin, the mechanism of action for that one is it interferes with the type 2 topoisomerase, which is involved in opening up the DNA strand. So if you heard about the double helix DNA, it like opens it up. The thing about it, the way it works, is that once the topoisomerase opens it up, it never gets closed back. So the idea, because of the doxorubicin being in there, will interfere with the topoisomerase's activity, and it doesn't do its job correctly. So it leaves the DNA opened and subject to damage. And that would be good as long as the doxorubicin gets into the cells that it needs to get into, like the cancer cells, and destroys the cancer cells that way. The second one, ifosfamide, is an alkylation agent. It kind of has like a similar function. The exact mechanism of action is kind of unknown, but it also interferes with DNA by alkylating it, which alkylation is just adding like hydrocarbons onto either the DNA or like the proteins involved with DNA. So that's how that interferes. At least from what I read, that's what it said. So take this on a day's worth of quick research just to do this video on at least on that drug. There's a lot less on that drug compared to doxorubicin. So in going through the chemo tomorrow, the one, good thing that could come from it is that I can just be positive and I can make these videos. The one downside to something like doxorubicin is that it causes your hair to fall out, and also, which hence why I shaved my beard, and also it attacks your heart. It damages your heart muscles. That's why doctors can't give this in higher doses. Even though the drug works better, the more you give it, the higher the dose, the higher the risk of like damaging your heart, and obviously you have to have your heart beating. So there's only a limited amount of time and doses that you're really allowed to use doxorubicin. So I'll be on both of those drugs. The one thing that I want to do is at least educate people while I'm going through this. And also, since I am a scientist, I've always wanted to do adjuvant therapy to cancer, or possibly preventative cancer therapy. So what adjuvant therapy is therapy alongside a normal treatment. So I think in the world of supplements, and that's what I wanted to use, is like how can we prevent cancer through supplementation and diet, as well as how can we either minimize side effects of chemotherapy or actually enhance chemotherapy. So I guess that I will be my own guinea pig for this subject. When I was talking with my dad, he approached me and he looked up some research articles and pulled a couple supplements out, and today I've looked at those research articles and it's worth a shot. Because the one bad thing about my sarcoma is that it's very rare and there's not a lot of great studies out there on it, and there's not really one great treatment option for what I have. So since there's not one great treatment option, I should be really open to anything. The other thing is with the drugs that I mentioned earlier, they are what's called, like, they're not a targeted therapy. It's more of a generic therapy just for cancer in general. And when we mean by targeted, we mean to attack like the gene, the protein that the cancer cell is overexpressing, what makes that cancer cell unique, so that you're only getting those types of cells and not all the other cells in your body. So that's the one bad thing. Well, at least with the supplementation, I'm going to be taking curcumin, which is from turmeric, which is in spice you find in a lot of Indian food. I'm going to be taking spirulina, which is an algae, and then I'm also going to be taking the natural form of vitamin E. The one good thing I would say is that curcumin and vitamin E have been started being studied a lot, especially with uh, uh, doxy. Totally blanking. Yeah, doxorubicin, and since they've been studied with doxorubicin, the effects they find, like, they have like a synergistic effect, and it helps the doxorubicin actually get into the cells that it needs to while protecting other cells. So it doesn't inhibit the functionality of the chemotherapy drug, and in fact it might even enhance it going into the cells that it needs to go into. In my dissertation work, I did stuff with like capsules and putting cells in the capsules and injecting them into mice to treat like obesity. Well, with curcumin and actually vitamin E, they've been doing like nanoparticles and nanocapsules where it's helping to guide the chemotherapy drug into the tumor to see if that works better. So I'm going to be taking those. Hopefully it works and it protects my heart and protects the other cells in my body while allowing the drug to get into where it needs to be to damage the DNA. This whole entire time through this process, I was reminded of a story out of the Bible. It's in the first chapter of Daniel. One of my first classes on cancer at OSU, the lecturer discussed about the first dietary intervention. Well, at the beginning of the chapter, basically Daniel and his buddies are captured and they're hauled off to Babylon, and they're in like King Nebuchadnezzar's court. Well, Daniel finds favor with the head eunuch there and doesn't like the diet that the people are eating. Probably it like had a lot of pigs and pork and wasn't kosher, so he didn't want to eat it. So they started their first, like, I guess we would say, dietary intervention and or clinical trial, if you want to put it that way. And so they, instead of eating the rich food and the wine, they ate vegetables and water. So after 10 days, they compared the young men that were eating vegetables and water and the people that were on the king's diet. And of course, Daniel looked better after he ate vegetables and water. So it seems like that's a better diet to have. So during this process of the food I'm not trying to keep down, I'm going to be doing a lot of like juicing, like fruits and vegetables, and taking those supplements to hopefully have it targeted the chemotherapy. That's my hippy dippy thing, but it also might be something that actually works. So I appreciate all your prayers, and hopefully this was informative so I don't have to go over it with everybody else, and I hopefully will be updating as major things are happening. Thanks.